Hi there, welcome back to On the Flip Side. My name is Adam Shawalker, your host. Today we're going to be going over the Metallica Blacklist, as well as a quick little review of the Black Album. Now, I'm sure everyone watching, or at least pretty much the majority of you watching, are already going to know what the Black Album is, who Metallica is. It's a household name at this point. You should know this band. I'm sure you know this album because everyone's freaking heard this thing. I will be up front. I am not the biggest fan of the Black Album. We're just going to cover what exactly is up with the new Metallica Blacklist, the remaster, the covers, the original record. They are doing a whole bunch of stuff with this album, and I just thought it would be worthy to look into this topic today. So first and foremost, we're going to go over my thoughts on the Black Album. Just a quick little rundown. The track listing is as follows. You have side 1 with Enter Sandman, Sad But True, Holier Than Thou, The Unforgiven, Wherever I May Roam, and Don't Tread on Me. Side 2 with Through the Never, Nothing Else Matters, Of Wolf and Man, The God That Failed, My Friend of Misery, and The Struggle Within. This album came out in 1991, is the 5th album for Metallica. The lineup for this era is obviously James Hetfield, Kirk Hammett, Lars Ulrich, but you have Jason Newsted on bass. This is of course post Cliff Burton. So like I said, everyone's already pretty much heard this album, so I'm not going to pick it apart too much. I just kind of want to give you my general thoughts on this record. So let's get this covered in as brief a fashion as possible. You have side 1 with Enter Sandman. This is probably what many people would consider, I mean, it's either, you know, your favorite song in their discography, or you have some taste, and you know, this is probably what many people would consider to either be Metallica's best song or kind of the beginning of the end as far as the Metallica songwriting quality goes. Just sort of like the slow, steady march downhill that you kind of get into the newer Metallica catalog and the newer Metallica material. One thing is undeniable though, you have definitely heard this song. Everyone that you know has heard this song. I've heard this song. Your grandmother has heard this song. No one has not heard Enter Sandman. It is such a large hit that you just can't get away from it. This track, in my opinion, is a bit of an audio plague. Everyone knows it. Everyone's got an opinion on it. My opinion is that it's really not worth more than the time that I've already given it. Track 2 on the record is Sad But True. This track is actually pretty decent. As far as the Black Album goes, this whole song is real chunky. The sound is huge. The lyrics, while being a little bit cheesy, are nowhere near as bad as James Hetfield's lyrical content would become. So for this era, pretty decent. Track 3 is Holier Than Thou. Honestly, one of my favorite tracks on the album. The song goes full beat down and is generally a blast to listen to. This is definitely, in my opinion, one of the highlights for this album. It's a lot more thrash-centric and not just kind of like this new heavy kind of groove thing they're getting into here. Track 4, the one thing that I really can give this song a lot of credit for is the excellent sampling and use of the Ecstasy of Gold for the intro, even though it's only like, it's not really properly sampled except for in like the live version of this track. Other than that, The Unforgiven is probably, in my opinion, one of the weaker hitting tracks on the record, although in my opinion it is just kind of, it's that way because it's a bit overplayed. It's not really an awful track, it's kind of like Enter Sandman in that just like, it is, you know, you hear it a lot. Track 5 is Wherever I May Roam. If this song wasn't so overplayed as well, it would probably be one of my favorite tracks on the record. But like, knowing how Metallica would kind of continue to fumble their songwriting over the years, this song, it just kind of can't help but make my eyes roll every time I hear it. With track 6 on the record, we have Don't Tread on Me. This is, in my opinion, one of the most lackluster songs that Metallica has ever written. It's boring, predictable, and entirely unnecessary in a track listing that includes fucking Nothing Else Matters, of all things. Side 2, track 7, we have Through the Never. You know, this one's pretty good. There's really not too much to say here. This is a good track. Through the Never, not bad. Track 8, Nothing Else Matters. I don't think you're gonna want to hear my thoughts on this one either. It's not good. It's not good. Track 9 of Wolf and Man, while having some of the most like gimmicky lyrics on the record, this is one of the best tracks here, I think, in this grouping of songs. I'd argue that this is one of the best Metallica tracks in general. Its production is huge, it's tight, and it doesn't have some stupid esoteric bullshit that it needs to throw at you. It's just a dumb song about werewolves. Sick. Track 10, The God That Failed. This is another highlight for me on the record. The lyrics here in some segments are legitimately very crushing, and in other parts the song just grooves real hard. Great song. Track 11, My Friend of Misery, overplayed but not nearly as much as the rest of the tracks on this album, or at least the rest of the bigger tracks here. Track 12, The Struggle Within, the final track here. Once again, decent track, not too much more to say about this one other than James Hetfield kind of just like sucks at writing lyrics and is far better at writing rhythm guitar riffs. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's get back to the topic at hand, the Metallica Blacklist. I see a lot of people complaining about Metallica not choosing any of like their contemporaries to participate in this covers album, namely like, like Death Angel or like Testament, Exodus, whatever. There's tons and tons of thrash acts they could have used to do covers for this record, but I don't really think that that's going to be a big deal here. Personally, I'm like kind of marginally disappointed with that decision. I can also kind of commend them for doing something like this. It's a little bit out of the box, although honestly, with it being Metallica and like knowing their track record, it should kind of be expected a bit, so I guess it's not really so far out of the box. It's just not much of a stretch is what I'm saying. While I'm not particularly excited for many of the artists that are going to be appearing on this record, I am excited for a few that just seem to be kind of odd here. Some like really interesting bands, really interesting artists that are going to be putting their spin on some of these classic Metallica songs. Hopefully some of the covers here for some of the songs that I'm not a big fan of, like, they'll do an interesting job and I'll appreciate those songs a little bit more. With how weird some of these artists are, there's just kind of no way that these were included as a fluke. Like, it tells me that like there's something special for some of these covers. Something just tells me these guys are going to be doing really good covers on this thing. Mac DeMarco, one of the artists covering Enter Sandman, might actually give that song a chance to not be insufferable, although I'm not necessarily like the biggest fan of Mac DeMarco, but it's not, he's not an artist that like if I hear his songs I immediately want to turn them off. I can honestly say that his music has been fairly decent when I've heard it, and I'm pretty stoked to hear this version. The Mexican Institute of Sound covering Sad But True absolutely caught me off guard. They did this really excellent cover of Bittersweet Symphony that I absolutely loved. It blew me away. If you haven't heard that cover, you should check it out on Spotify. Also, St. Vincent doing a cover of Sad But True as well. Very interested to see how that one pans out. Very excited to hear the off cover of Holier Than Thou. I've heard a little bit of it though. I think they just released that video. This, in my opinion, is probably the closest like delivery that we'll get to like kind of a true thrash sound on the album, despite the fact that off is mostly like former punk band members like Black Flag, that kind of thing. But that is probably going to be like the thrashiest we'll hear of any of these covers. Cage the Elephant doing The Unforgiven has a chance to be fairly interesting. Not holding out like really high hopes, but who knows. Also the Flatbush Zombies version, which I'm assuming will mostly be like kind of a different song with like really heavy sampling of the original material. I'm assuming it'll prove to be pretty decent. Also, Moses Sumney doing The Unforgiven, probably going to be fantastic. His track Doomed really hooked me when I heard it. Honestly, I can see his rendition being a very big highlight here. Through the Never, covered by The Who, is going to be incredibly stupid, but nevertheless probably incredibly funny. So I am looking forward to that. Also, not a single version of Nothing Else Matters will be good. I'm calling it now. That is a turd that really can't be polished, in my opinion. One of the most interesting choices here, in my opinion, is Kamasi Washington doing My Friend of Misery. I am pretty stunned to see his inclusion here on this track listing, and I'm incredibly excited to see how his cover sounds. Kamasi is an incredible performer, and he knows his shit. Any artist that Brainfeeder Records like kind of touches just tends to be pure gold, and Kamasi is among like their best as far as their lineup of artists goes. So this is probably the one that I'm most excited to hear. The final song, The Struggle Within, covered by Rodrigo y Gabriela, I anticipate to be solid through and through. Nothing much else to say there. That is more or less my thoughts on this collection of artists. Anyone I have not mentioned, I don't have much of an opinion on, and I expect will probably be, a bit touch and go, here and there. However, I really hope that I'm going to be surprised with a lot of the performances and a lot of the covers on this album. I want a lot of them to be good, but I mean, let's be honest, like, there's no way the Weezer cover is going to be any good. They don't make good music. Anyway, the other cool thing about all this is that they're donating the proceeds to charity, which I guess, pretty cool. Pretty easy to write off something for tax purposes, so, I guess that kind of makes sense. when you don't actually have to record something for yourself, and you can kind of just let other artists do the legwork, you know, just write that shit off, why not? As far as the legendary status of the Black Album, do I think that this has like tarnished its reputation in some form? I mean, not particularly. This album, as far as I can tell, has always been a bit divisive if you're a Metallica fan or not. It's a record that kind of everyone has something to say about, so if you disagree with me, I can fully understand that and expect that. But I mean, I think the legacy that this record has is kind of just one of like a legacy that is on like the final days of legend. The Black Album, as an album, is just such a, you know, a cornerstone for so many, you know, artists, bands, genres that would come afterwards, production styles, and the fact that I don't like probably like 50% of this record, like, is really nothing compared to just the influence that this album has had, good, bad, whatever. It has, you know, it has done a lot of things, it's changed a lot of things. And I think that that has some merit in and of itself. So I don't necessarily want this video to just be me shitting on the Black Album because it's like it's a crappy record or something, but it's really not. It's just, you know, it is one of those records that everyone has something to say about. And I just wanted to thank you guys all so much for listening to my thoughts on this. Thank you guys so much for checking out the channel and checking out these videos. The last video I put up got like a pretty big response, ton of views in like a really short amount of time, so I'm stoked to see that you guys are enjoying that content. I'm gonna see if I can't get some more interviews with some folks, maybe do some more tours of some collections down the line, and just let me know how I'm doing. You know, leave a comment, what should I review, what kind of topics you want me to cover. Thank you all so much again, and we will see you on the flip side.